representing the whole family of Vaishnavas or ISKCON or a temple at every point of time. Sometimes you would see his disciples might not behave very well with the locals in Vrindavan, sometimes not even amongst one another. They would quarrel, and they would say, if other people see you quarreling amongst each other, why will they join the movement? Because they can already get that outside in the material world. So it's an emphasis on how each one of us should should act as if we carry the burden of the entire movement, Prabhupada's commitments, the Vaishnavas on our shoulder. Okay, so this is the end of the 15th chapter. Quick summary that divided into 4 parts. The first 3 verses talked about King Sumati. Then the next 2 verses talked about King Parita. And then the next 10 verses talked about King Gaya, his qualities, his rule, devotion, descendants, activities. And the last 16th verse talks about King Viraja. Okay, so we'll stop here and then we start the next chapter, which is a very interesting chapter in a way. It talks about, the 5th canto has a description of the universe in it. And the 16th chapter begins with the description of the Jambudvip. There are a couple of ways to approach it. One way is to look at it from the perspective of going through the purports. Prabhupada has given not detailed purports. Most of the verses don't have purports. But going through the verses and reading it. The second is to basically collect it as a separate set of sessions in which we talk only about the structure of the universe. But the difference between the two is that the Bhagavatam, even though we say like the Vedic the Vedic planetarium is based on the 5th canto, it's partially true. So it is based on part of what the Bhagavatam 5th canto says, but the 5th canto gives a generalized description. It's not actually possible to the level of details that they have or has been developed later on. Essentially, it has been supplemented by different scriptures. So acharyas in the past have collected details from Bhugol Shastra, Vayu Puran. Different Purans have descriptions of the Bhagavatam. There is the Surya's, the treatise which talks about the constellations. So acharyas have essentially spent literally years and years. They collected all this information, and then they've kind of produced this compendium of work on the Vedic cosmology. And then there are devotees who have kind of commented on it. Right? They have expanded on it, produced videos, etc. from it. So one way is that we simply go over it and cover it to the extent that the Bhagavatam does that, and the other is that we do a much deeper dive. My preference is the former, because the deeper dive will actually take a fair amount of time and effort, and it also depends on the interest of the audience. That the deeper dive, it has a lot of measurements and relative positions. It also has a lot of charts. In this environment, I can show the charts, but it's a little difficult to kind of interactively work on the charts. So one way is that we simply go over the verses of the Bhagavatam and cover it to the extent that has been covered in the Bhagavatam. with a little bit of overarching explanation, like the video that I've sent, which we'll see later on. That is one of the best videos that I saw that talks about Bhumandal, talks about Bhumandal per se. Now, this chapter that we are talks about one island within the Bhumandal. It talks about Jambudvip. But I'll pause over here and see what do the devotees think.
We have to go deeper. That's right.
I agree with Prem Kishore Prabhu, because if we go verse by verse, even if content is same, still probably our grasping would be little difficult to see the holistic picture. But if you present it like in the in-depth way, probably will present it in different layers for us. So that makes our life in understanding will be easy.
Okay. Other thoughts?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, I think we did some presentation. You did some presentation before, I think in 3 or 4 classes about the universe. And I think whatever you think is best for us to understand, I think we'll go with that.
Okay, thank you. What do you think, Paramatma Prabhu?
Yeah, I remember you did a presentation, and not one presentation, but a series of presentation. It was very, very fascinating for me, very, deep. And I would prefer, like the other devotees suggest, that we go through the elaborate way, because not very often we will have we will have you to explain it. I was like really fascinated with what you did the last time, and it will be really sort of like a refresher, but also now we are in the 5th canto, and if we can go slow and a little deeper, it will be a wonderful experience for us, for me, for the rest of my life.
Thank you for sharing, Prabhu. Nanda Prabhu, what do you think?
I totally agree, Prabhu. I would like to see the presentation. It gives me an overall picture, and then we can go. And if you prefer to go verse by verse later on, that would be good. But presentation would be wonderful.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhu. So we'll do that. Puts me a little bit of disadvantage this time because I don't have that ready with me. It'll take me some time to make it ready. So the way that Sukadeva Goswami starts is so the Bhagavatam in its entirety, it does not really talk about the whole material universe, right? It talks about the Bhumandal only. And what Sukadeva Goswami right now is talking about one of the islands in Bhumandal, Jambudvip. And the reason that he picks on it is, of course, that it's the innermost island. It is also the island on which we live. So on a part of this island we live. So people want to know first, like, where am I? Like, you go to the mall and there's a big map and there's one arrow there say you are here. And then you can kind of figure out the orientation where it is. So it's also one of the reasons that he picks saying that that you're over here. And then he talks about the structure of Jambudvip. So what I'm going to do is, like I said, there is an excellent video on the Bhumandal as a whole. I'm going a little bit against the flow, and that's why I wanted your permission before this, because he will speak about Bhumandal later on. And he speaks first about Jambudvip. But the approach that has been taken by most of the commentators or the devotees who have spoken about it is they kind of go outside in. They kind of look at a big picture of the Bhumandal, and then they start coming inside. So we'll watch this. We'll watch this video, and after that, go over the verses of the chapter, and then after that, I'll prepare for a series of presentations that basically takes a little bit one step behind also. So we'll begin with the structure of the universe, which, as Paramatma Prabhu was saying, we did that. The whole material creation, from the spiritual world to the material world to our universe, and then the 14 planetary systems within our universe. Of the 14 planetary systems, we have Bhumandal, and then we'll drill down on in the Bhumandal. And once we have that understanding, the subsequent chapters that we'll do, we'll kind of do them quickly, because we'll relate them to our initial presentations. Okay, so Prem Kishore Prabhu, whenever you're ready, if you can start that, or let me do this. So the first 2-3 verses are actually introductory verses that kind of establishes the setting of why is Parikshit Maharaj interested in the structure of the universe, right? So it's also a question the devotees ask. Bhagavatam is all about devotion. So where is this architecture / engineering aspect of it coming? Similar to when we were talking about the Virat Purush, the Mahapurush description, how the body of the Mahapurush was composed of gross and subtle elements. So the whole analysis of the composition of the universe, very, very exacting, how one comes from the other. And the question was that how does this affect our bhakti? So let's do the first few set of verses, and then we can look at the presentation. So starting from the first verse of 5:16, the chapter has 29 verses in it, divided into 3 sections. The first 3 verses talk about the questions from Parikshit Maharaj about the details of Jambudvip. Then verses 4 to 10 is a description of Jambudvip, and the verses 11 to 29 is the description. So the Jambudvip is the innermost dweep of the Bhumandal, and the innermost part of Jambudvip is Ilavat Varsha. So the remaining verses are about Ilavat Varsha and Mount Sumeru, which is in the middle of Jambudvip. So that's how the chapter is described. So let's start from verse 1. Prabhu, if you can do the translation.
King Parikshit said to Sukadev Goswami, "O Brahmana, you have already informed me that the radius of Bhumandala extends as far as the sun slides, and heat as far as the moon and all the stars can be seen."
So we see that here Parikshit Maharaj is responding to a point that was made by Sukadev Goswami in the first chapter of the 5th canto. So in the 5th canto, 1st chapter, verse 30, Sukadev Goswami, when he was describing the rule of Priyavrata Maharaj, then he explains that how Priyavrata Maharaj, with his chariot, he went around and around Bhumandal, and he divided it into 9 parts. Right. So that time Sukadev Goswami, when he spoke this point, Parikshit Maharaj registered it, but he was waiting for Sukadev Goswami to come to a logical end, and 15 chapters later on, now that point has come. So he says, you have already informed me that the radius of the Bhumandal extends as far as the sun spreads its light and heat, and as far as the moon and all the stars can be seen. Now, interestingly, Sukdev Goswami was not speaking figuratively. He was speaking literally. So one way of saying is that you can see as far as the sun spreads its light is saying infinite. And because the sun is spreading its light goes on and on and on. So with some amount of poetic license, this alludes to infinity. That may your fame spread as far as the rays of the sun. Like, may your fame spread everywhere. But here it is actually literally, because as we'll see later on, that the Bhumandal has a chain of mountains that are on the outer circumference of the Bhumandal, and they are taller than the sun. So all the light and the heat of the sun are limited to within those mountains. They're known as the Lokalok mountain. So Lokalok means light, and Aloka means no light. So they basically are the distinguishing area. Outside of it is darkness. There is no light, no heat. Inside of it is light and heat. Now, Bhumandal still extends beyond that, but the habitable part of Bhumandal is within the Lokalok mountains. So, Parishad Maharaj is now reminding Sukdev Goswami that you spoke about this. Please tell me a little bit more. Srila Prabhupada, in the purport, he says that in the Gayatri Mantra we chant Om Bhur Bhava Swaha. Right? So we talk about 3 worlds over here. We talk about Bhur Bhuva Swaha. So Bhu points to Bhumandal. Swaha points to Svargalok, which is above the Bhumandal, and Bhuva is the area in between. Sometimes it's called Antariksh, but this is where the divine beings who are not demigods, like the Gandharvas and the Apsaras and the Kimapurusha, not the Kimapurushas, the Siddhas, the Charams, they kind of live in this area. So this is considered to be the middle part of the universe. So Prabhupada says that, like in the Gayatri Mantra, it says Om Bhur Bhava Swaha Tat Savitur Varenyam. So Tat Savitur Varenyam means that the sunshine spreads throughout the Bhumandal. Right? So that area that is diffused with the sunshine. So within the Lokalok mountains. And Prabhupada further says, it talks about the fact that the sun is different from the stars. That the stars are so the sun is the one that illuminates everything else, and everything else is illuminated by, other than the sun, is illuminated by the sun. Prabhupada says in 1021, we understand that the stars are similar to the moon. Nakshatra nam aham shashi. Like the moon, the stars reflect the sunshine. Now, this is, of course, different from modern cosmology, where they consider that the stars are like other suns, and some of the stars actually are million times more powerful than the sun, larger, more powerful. And there are different ways that this gets. So we won't go into this. So what we'll do right now is simply accept. And Prabhupada makes this point a few times in this chapter and subsequent chapters also, that a lot of things that you will hear over here may contradict your empirical understanding of what modern science has found, but we place our trust on the scriptures, understand that this is the version of truth that is complete. The other truths are relative. So they may be relative to our understanding, relative to our frame of reference, but this is the This is what is the absolute truth that is being explained over here. Okay, let's go on to verse 2.
My dear Lord, the rolling wheel of Maharaj Priyavrata chariot created 7 ditches in which 7 oceans came into existence. Because of these 7 oceans, Bhumandala is divided into 7 islands. You have given a very general description of their measurement, names and characteristics. Now I wish to know of them in detail. Kindly fulfill my desire.
Okay. So correction to what I said earlier. I said 9, but actually Bhumandal is divided in 7 islands. The division of 9 is actually for Jambudvip. So the islands are known as dweeps. And literally the dweep has a little different meaning from what we consider as an island. So we consider as geographically we say an island that is surrounded by water on all 4 sides. Dweepas are, dwi means 2 and pa means water. So in Sanskrit, the dweepa means that it has water on 2 sides of it. So the islands that we will see in the Bhumandal, they're actually dweepas in a literal sense that they have waters on 2 sides. Geographically, when they talk about an island, what they mean is that if you travel enough on the island, you will hit a shore. But these dweepas, you can travel for a long time or forever without hitting a shore, because they are like rings that are floating in the water. So if you consider a ring and you put it on the water, then on 2 sides there is water. But if you traverse along the circumference of the ring, you won't hit water. So that way it's a little different, but this is how the dweepas over here are defined. That they are surrounded by water on 2 sides. So these 7 islands, they're essentially 7 rings of land that have oceans on both sides. Not necessarily water, as we'll see that the oceans are of different material. So with the exception of the innermost ring, which is what you would more conventionally consider to be an island. So Jambudvip is surrounded on all 4 sides by water, like right in the middle, but the rings that are surrounding them, they are surrounded by water or liquid on the 2 sides. Okay, verse 3.
When the mind is fixed upon the Supreme Percent of Godhead, in his external features made of material modes of nature, the gross universal form, it is brought to the platform of pure goodness. In that transcendental position, one can understand the Supreme Percent of Godhead, Vasudev, who in his subtler form is itself effulgent and beyond the mode of nature. O my Lord, please describe vividly how that form, which covers the entire universe, is perceived.
So this verse that is spoken by Vaishal Maharaj is important because it's answering this unspoken question that why are you interested in all this? And Sukdev Goswami is saying that I'm sitting here with a desire to do Bhagavad Katha. And then you're asking me all these technical questions about the structure of the universe, etc. So Vaishal Maharaj, he is answering this implicit question that when the mind is fixed on the external feature of the Lord, it is brought to the platform of pure goodness. Right? So it is eventually brought to the platform of pure goodness. And the acharyas have given maybe 2 or 3 reasons expanding on this verse spoken by Parishit Maharaj. So the first is that Parishit Maharaj, himself being a devotee, was not much interested in this. But he was also aware that the group of people sitting behind him were with different levels of realization. And he is also aware that this Bhagavatam will then be spoken to the sages of Naimisharanya who have different levels of realization. And it will eventually be read by people for posterity who have different levels of realization. So when he speaks this verse, he's talking about Bhakti Mishra yogis. So what is the meditation of the yogis? The yogis meditate on the universal form of the Lord. Maybe when Lord Kapila talked about it in the third canto, that when the yogis become more advanced, then they start meditating on the universal form of the Lord. So what is the universal form of the Lord? It is this. It is the structure of the universe. It's the Bhumandal, it's the Brahmalok, it's Mount Sumeru. So these are all the constituent parts of the universal form of the Lord. And how do they make progress? Then by meditating on this external form of the Lord, they become attracted to the Lord himself. So the analogy that is given here is, it's a more contemporary analogy, not given by the sages, but more by in our time, that there are people who become fascinated by a particular actor. Now, why do they get fascinated by the actor? Think about the time when the person did not know, when the actor is not known. How does he become popular? So the person comes on in movies, right? He comes on the screen, he plays a certain role. Now, even the people who are watching those movies, they are aware that this actor is playing a role. But what they begin to do is, they begin to associate the role with the actor. So they develop some attachment to the role, and transitively through the role, they develop attachment to the person. So if the person is doing a lot of a chivalrous role, coming in a lot of heroic roles, people develop a lot of appreciation for him. And then soon, what you know is now the object of attention is completely focused towards the actor, the person who's the actor. That this person is, whoever that person is, Amitabh Bachchan is the greatest actor. He's played the role of the angry young man so many times. Initially, people got attracted to their role, and then they got attracted to the person. So similarly, the Lord is hidden. He's not very easily discernible to the non-devotees. But when they see the Lord in this form, they look around them, and this is talking about the yogis. They look around them, and they see the vastness of the creation. They see so much of. It's like Einstein. He said that when you see both the complexity and the simplicity of nature, that nature around you is so complex, but then it is based on so many very simple rules. E is equal to mc square, F is equal to ma, very, very simple rules. And then they build upon. So when you see this, then you have to understand that there is a higher power that is working. So we still haven't reached the 10th canto. The first 9 cantos are meant to increase our attraction to the person Krishna. The Krishna will appear in the 10th canto as in a way that he wants us to relate to him. But before we get attracted to the person behind the scene, he's attracting us to the person on the screen. So these descriptions of the universe are there to instill awe, reverence, admiration, getting some kind of appreciation of all this Krishna does in a breath. Or all does Vishnu do? All this is done by Vishnu in one breath. And Vishnu is a part of a part of a part of Krishna. Let me know more about Krishna. So Vishnu Chakravarti says that the phrase Bhagavato Gunamaya Sthula indicates that this universe is the gross form made of the gunas of the Lord. And then he says that Parishad Maharaj, he uses the word Bhagavat and in a possessive way, which means that all this belongs to the Lord. Now, if something belongs to somebody, it means that it is different from that person. If this car belongs to me, it means that I am not the car. The car may be completely be under my dominion, but I am not the car. So Parishad Maharaj is also carefully making this point that don't think that I'm confusing the Lord with the creation. The Lord is the cause of the creation. The creation belongs to the Lord, and the Lord is different from the creation. So Chakravarti later on said that the phrase Api Sukshmata Atma Jyotishi Pare are all in the same case, indicating their equivalence. Bhagavan is Brahman, the light of the soul, the finest beyond the gunas. This indicates that though they belong to the Lord, he is beyond them. Right? So the Vaishnava commentators, they always walk this fine line that when there is a lot of description of the Brahmajyoti or the Vishwarupa, the fine line is saying that while these are all representations of the Lord is not them. Because it is easy to take them, quote them out of context, and say, well, the Bhagavatam says, Parishad Maharaj says that he wants to know about the Lord. So what does he do? He asks about the structure of the universe. What does it mean? That the Lord is the universe. Right? So it's easy to misinterpret. So that is why Chakravarti Pad, even Parishad Maharaj, by the use of the words in the proper context, he's making sure that this distinction is maintained. Parishad Maharaj also addresses Sukadev Goswami as Guru, specifically to indicate that two things, that while this topic is not core to the Bhagavad Katha, but he is a Guru, so he knows. So he's qualified to speak on the topic. And also as a Guru, he is qualified to continue to make that distinction between the Lord and his creation. Right? So Vishnu Chakravarti says that, Parishad Maharaj says that for me, the nectar flowing from your mouth is enough to satisfy my ears. That is enough for me to attain the Lord. But still I want to hear more about it. So one reason we discussed was that he's doing it as an act of mercy for those who are not situated on the platform of Shuddha Bhakti. Second reason is that he's doing it on the platform of Sankhya, that he wants to make sure that there is a distinction between the Lord and his creation. The third reason is that he is doing it on a platform of humility. So Parishad Maharaj is not saying that I don't really want to concern myself about these mundane topics because I am transcended beyond them. Just go and talk to me about the rasa dance. Right? So he's not jumping over the Lord's body. Right? They say the Bhagavatam is the body of the Lord, bringing from the lotus feet. All the 9 cantos get you to the face of the Lord. So he's not jumping over the body of the of the Lord, even though Sukadeva Goswami knows that Parikshit Maharaj is a pure devotee, Parikshit Maharaj, pretty much in the mood of a pure devotee, is displaying humility, saying that I need this to make my own advancement. The fourth reason is that the conversations between a disciple and a guru, or the conversation between a devotee and a more advanced devotee, they're also like the churning of nectar. So sometimes, and we'll see that around us also, sometimes when there are more advanced devotees, even devotees who have been practicing for a long time, they will ask basic questions. Why don't we eat onion garlic? Why don't we eat meat? How do we know Krishna is the personality of God? It does not mean that they're testing the guru or they have doubts in themselves, but they want to get benefit of the realization of an advanced devotee. So you ask that, how do we know that Krishna is God? Now, the person himself may himself know 20 verses that they can quote from Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, that Krishna is Lord. But when the other devotee starts talking, then he will speak from his own realizations. That Krishna is the personality of Godhead because he is allowing Mother Yashoda to beat him with a stick. Right? It's a whole different realization. So sometimes devotees will ask, like within quote, known questions, simply to churn the answers again. Right? So in that mood also Parikshit Maharaj is saying that, tell me. Like later on we'll also, well, we won't do it as part of Bhakti Vaibhava, but in the 8th canto we see that Parikshit Maharaj, for Gajendra, he says, tell me, I want to hear this again, the Gajendra Moksha Katha. And the acharyas say that Parikshit Maharaj has already heard it. He has grown up hearing it. He knows it inside out. So he's still stopping Sukadeva Goswami, saying, I want to hear it again. What does it mean? I want to hear your realizations. I want to get benefit of the nectar that is flowing from your lotus mouth. So this is another reason. And the last reason is that questions like this, they also establish the relationship between the jiva and the material world. So when one understands that the material world is an expansion of Krishna, then one also understands that I should not misuse the material world. I should not exploit it. So that is why even though the devotees are very careful of Maya, even though the devotees are very careful about the entrapment of the material world, but they will still consider statements like Jagat Mithya, Brahma Satya, they consider it to be horrible statements. Why? Because you might say, well, even you consider Jagat to be a place of Dukhalyam Ashashvatam, not a place for a gentleman. Leave. So what's the problem in saying Jagat Mithya? Because the devotees understand that the Jagat is nothing but one manifestation of the Lord. So it's kind of like going back to the analogy I was using about a person getting fascinated by the personas, by the acting, and then getting fascinated by the actor, right? And then you go to his house and you have a poster, you see that he has a poster of the actor, and then you start spitting on that poster, or you start defacing that poster. The person will get upset. Why are you doing this? Then you can say, but this is just a poster. I'm not spitting on the real person. I'm just spitting on the poster. But nevertheless, because it is closely linked to the original person. So we see that both Parikshit Maharaj and Sukadeva Goswami, they also want us to respect the material world. While they don't want us to respect it so much that we just make it like a permanent house, but we respect it in a way that, and Prabhupada will talk about this in the purport. He quotes this verse from Rupa Goswami, Prupachikantaya buddhya hari sambandhi vastuna mumukshubi pratiyago vairagya palgu kathayate. Right? Basically, it means that if one who rejects everything material is a falgu vairagya. So what is the recommendation? Hari sambandhi vastuna. You see it in relationship with Hari. That is real vairagya. Like anasaktasya vishayan yathartham upayunjata. Nirbandha Krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagyam uchyate. So by connecting in our mind the relationship between Krishna and his energies, we understand the position of the energies. We also develop respect for the energies. And Prabhupada says that even the senses, when purified, are spiritual. Like many times we basically talk about the senses as snakes or ropes or as things that are pulling us down to the modes. But then he says even the senses, when purified, are spiritual. So there is nothing really material in this world. The only thing that is material is our consciousness. And by making this, by re-emphasizing this connectivity of everything with Krishna, it also allows us to whatever material aspect that we have, we also begin to spiritualize it. Prabhupada talks about it then in a practical sense. He says that in our preaching work also, we deal with so much of property and money and so many books bought and sold. But because these dealings all pertain to Krishna consciousness movement, they should never be considered material. That one is absorbed in thoughts of such management does not mean that he is outside of Krishna consciousness. It's a very, very practical understanding of this, the philosophical basis of this question by Parashut Maharaj. So the question may be at a stratospheric level, that tell me about the structure of the universe. And the Prabhupada is saying that how this relates to our day-to-day activities. And just like the universe is not different from the Lord, because a devotee sees it in connection with the Lord, similarly activities that we do day-to-day, whether it is our job, whether it's taking care of the family, taking care of our health, taking care of the car, all this can become spiritualized by seeing it in connection with Krishna. And Prabhupada then says, how can we do that? He says, by rigidly following the regulative principles, chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra 16 rounds. His dealings with the material world for the sake of spreading the Krishna consciousness movement are not different from the spiritual cultivation of Krishna consciousness. Okay. Let's go on to the next verse, verse 4.
The great Rishi Sukadeva Goswami said, "My dear king, there is no limit to the expansion of the Supreme Presence of Godhead material energy. This material world is a transformation of the material qualities, Sattvagun, Rajagun, and Tamagun. Yet no one could possibly explain it perfectly, even in a lifetime as long as that of Brahma. No one in the material world is perfect. An imperfect person could not describe this material universe accurately, even after continued speculation. O king, I shall nevertheless try to explain to you the principal region, such as Goloka, with their names, forms, measurement, and various symptoms."
So there are a couple of important points in this verse. The first is that Sukadeva is commenting on the relationship between the Lord and his energy. So because the Lord is infinite, all his creations are infinite. Because the Lord is beyond our comprehension, his creations are also beyond our comprehension. So even we, who are created by the Lord, we do not fully understand ourselves. Right? That is why we take shelter of the scriptures, even in a conditioned state. If we get sick, we go to another person. We go to the doctor and say, please tell me why I'm sick. And one might say, well, this is your body. You're sitting right inside it. Nobody knows your body as well as you do. But we are all limited by the fact that the Lord is infinite and we are finite. So Sukadeva Goswami is first making this point that the material world is a creation of the Lord, and like the Lord is infinite and incomprehensible. So I cannot explain it and you cannot understand it. However, to the extent that the Lord has empowered me to understand, I will explain to you. So in the previous verse, we saw the humility of Parishad Maharaj. Here we see the humility of his Guru. We see the humility of Sukadeva Goswami. Now, one may question that Brahma is the creator of this universe. So shouldn't he be able to, he constructed the universe. So shouldn't be able to understand or explain. But the point made by Srila Prabhupada several times is that Brahma is the engineer. He has a blueprint, he has the material, he looks at the blueprint, he has the material, he gets it together. And then it works because he follows the instructions perfectly. See, it's like they have for kids, they have those kits that they send. So the kits basically have mostly they're like some electrical thing, but they have these many knockdown components, right? And they come up with an instruction. You connect A to B, put a wire over here, put the bulb over here, put this over there, and then press the switch, and whatever is supposed to happen, the light turns on or the fan starts moving. Now, if the kid is following it properly, then what will come out of it is what is promised. But it does not mean that he understands everything. It does not mean that there's a motor over here, he understands the principle of how the motor is moving, how the power moves in there, and the electrons are exciting the magnet, right? And it doesn't need to. It's beyond his comprehension. So that is Brahma's role. He has the blueprint, he has the material, he's qualified enough to take the blueprint, understand the instructions, and then use the material. But then if somebody was to ask Brahma the full extent of that he created, he will be unable to do so. Just like if a person is assembling a PC and then somebody asks him that I'm running this program and it's not working now. He says, I don't know. I just assembled the PC. But you assemble the PC, is your creation. I just took the parts and put it together, and that's how I know. So in the purport, Prabhupada says that Bhulok is explained to be that portion of outer space which through which heat and light of the sun is extended. Therefore, it is natural to include that the universe extends in space as far as we can see and encompasses the glittering stars. Srila Sukadeva Goswami admitted that to give full details of this expansive material universe would be impossible. But nevertheless, he wanted to give the king as much knowledge as he had received through the Parampara system. We should conclude that if one cannot comprehend the material expansion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one certainly cannot estimate the expansiveness of the spiritual world. The Prabhupada takes it to the next level. That we are living in the material world, we are experiencing it empirically, and if we are not able to comprehend it fully, what hope there is for us to comprehend the spiritual world in which we don't even have, or we don't remember having, direct experience. Okay? So let's go to the next verse. This will be the last verse that we do. And after that, I'll pause for any Q&A and then we'll play the video. So verse 5.
The planetary system known as Bhumandala resembles a lotus flower, and its 7 islands resemble the whorl of a flower. The length and breadth of the island known as Jambudvipa, which is situated in the middle of the whole, 1 million yojana, 8 million miles. Jambudvipa is round like a leaf of lotus flower.
So now Sukdev Goswami is beginning to describe Jambudvip, right? So he positions Jambudvip within Bhumandal. He doesn't describe Bhumandal, and he will do that later on. So a couple of things, you will see that the measurements here are always given in yojanas, and one yojan is 8 miles. Sometimes it's explicitly given, sometimes it's not, but then you can do the maths. The second thing is that when some of these comparisons are given, they're not fully literal comparisons. Like it is said that the Bhumandal resembles a lotus flower. At other places, it is said that the Bhumandal resembles a lotus leaf. And the reason it's called resembling a leaf is because it's essentially flat, like a disc. And the lotus flower, when you think of the lotus flower, you think of something like a cone that is coming up with concentric holes, and at the middle of it there is the middle part of it, and there is a pericarp coming, which is the stamens of the flower. It's not like that. But if you were to flatten that into 2 dimensions, then you would get Jambudvip, right? Or if you take a cross section of that, then you would get, the Bhumandal. And the center of the Bhumandal is Jambudvip. So I'll pause here and see if there is any comments.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. I have one question or guidance, you can say, Prabhu, because when you were explaining, at one point you mentioned that this whole Jagat is just one aspect, one aspect of the Supreme Lord. I'm not using the right word here, Prabhuji, but only one thing of the world. For a moment, it just bewildered me that, because this is when we say the whole Jagat, that is everything that we are aware of, in a sense. When I was thinking, even I took the shelter of the first verse, like Janma Jasya Swarat, and that other qualities of the Krishna, but still, because everything that we take shelter, that 10 topics of Bhagavatam, they're all connected to this universe. So somehow this bewildered me. How would I put is, generally whenever I fly, when I see the ocean, Prabhuji, oh, Krishna is controller or master of such a big ocean. I accept scripturally, intellectually also I accept, but still at heart it's a bit bewildering. So I got similar vibe, so if you can guide me a bit, how should I, consolidate at heart level? It's just not it is theory, but emotionally I was kind of couldn't digest it, to put in better word. So
it's difficult to do that. The point you make is valid, that when we look at the vastness of everything around us, and then we consider that this is a part of a part of a part of Krishna that we know, and there is so much of Krishna that we don't know. So like I said, one reason is that the acharyas do encourage us to engage at that level, so that at least when we're looking at the vastness of the ocean, then we are still connecting it somehow to Krishna. That's the whole purpose of describing the universal form of Krishna, describing the structure of the universe, is that even if Krishna is in the background, it does allow us to have Krishna at least on the stage. I guess the question was that how to develop a fuller appreciation of Krishna. My quick answer would be by following the process that's been given to us. It's not something that we can study and get. It's not something that we can will to ourselves, that tomorrow I'll get like a fuller understanding of Krishna. It is bestowed upon us, and the process of attracting that mercy is given to us. So, like Prabhupada mentioned in that verse, that simply by following the regulative principles, simply by chanting, and there he explicitly mentions, simply by chanting 16 rounds, he's being, he's giving us the bare minimum, but he's saying that is enough. That is enough to begin to appreciate the greatness of Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Can you hear me, Prabhu?
Yes.
The thing is, the structure of the Bhumandala or even the universe or whatever, especially our Earth planet and the structure which Bhagavatam describes our Vedic model is so different from what we have been knowing so far, like through modern science. How we have a picture of the Earth and the cosmos. The model of Vedic model is so different. So it takes some kind of a deprogramming of our mind to come to the proper to come to the understanding to comprehend what the Vedic model is. So is there a formula, or is there something procedure of how we can I don't know, is it only me or everybody has the same feeling, or I just don't know where I stand. So can you a little bit throw some light on that? Is there a way that we can have a picture of Vedic model and appreciate it, rather than comparing it with the modern science and could not make up how to understand it?
Sure. There are 2 or 3 thoughts, Prabhu, in this area. One is it's shared by Satputra Prabhu, and he gives it from a more I guess, an analytical perspective. Like, I won't be talking about his paper because it tends to be a little confusing, but he has written a paper in which he says that the description of the Bhumandal can be understood to describe 4 different things. It could describe the Bhumandal as we are studying it. It could describe the 3 planets, planetary Bhubhavasva, the 3 planets. And it could also describe Bharatvarsha. And it could also describe, and it points to a certain area in Central Asia, could point to that. And of course, he's substantiated by quotes from different acharyas who have developed that theme, that based on how the description is given, you can apply it contextually differently, and it would point to different things. And then he says that is the beauty of the Vedas, that they speak many things at the same time. And that's why the Vedas have to be spoken or understood under the tutelage of a guru. So one understanding is that what we are studying now is just one of the explanations that is derived from these sets of verses. There are many other explanations that either we are not studying or we are not aware of. And they would perhaps be able to reconcile many things that we know or think that we know. Right? So that's one way of looking at it. The second way of looking at it, which is Srila Prabhupada's favorite way, is saying that the scientists are rascals. And they have studied a little bit, and they have extrapolated, so they're cheating themselves and others. So essentially, a lot of things that we are taking as absolute truths, just because they're coming. Because if you look at it, how are the scientists exploring the universe? It is through secondary, tertiary observations. Like nobody has seen a star. How do they see the stars? I mean, we see the bright lights in the sun in the sky, but then they have all these different kind of telescopes which measure the electromagnetic waves and the bending of the waves. Essentially, that's how they see stars, that when the rays bend, then they derive the gravitational force of the bending, and from that they derive that it has to be a mass. They relate the gravity to the mass. So a lot of it is basically from secondary and tertiary theories that have been developed, and then they basically state it authoritatively. So even as we speak, as you know, the science is advancing, as the instruments are becoming more advanced, they themselves are revising the concept of the universe. At least, so I don't follow the astronomy part too much, but I know in evolution, they do keep revising the whole concept of evolution. That they found this, and based on more accurate carbon dating, now they are saying that humans actually existed millions of years ago, and possibly even before the dinosaurs were there. So the study in itself is predicated on things that are not very accurate, right? So that's the second way, that what is being presented to us in absolute truth by the scientists, it not necessarily will be the absolute truth. Third aspect that is that is again explained by Satputta Prabhu in this is the whole concept of the frame of reference. So so he talks about the fact that there's the heliocentric and geocentric, the earth-centered and the sun-centered. And there was, I think it was Aristotle who said that we are not earth-centered, we are sun-centered and made to drink poison. But what is where does it say that you cannot establish a frame of reference from the earth? And where is there to say that only the sun is the frame of reference? The point he makes, if there is somebody living in some other planet, for that person, that planet is the frame of reference. So when the movements are being described, they will change based on the frame of reference. So a lot of what is being given to us is with a particular frame of reference. It's like if I'm standing at the center and you're moving around me, from my perspective, you're moving in a circle. From your perspective, I'm standing still. Like the same motion, but different perspectives is interpreted differently. And this is actually one of the bases of the Vedic Bhayatorium, where it tries to explain that how the frame of reference, it makes a difference in describing the relative positions and the movement. That from the perspective of, if you're looking at it from an Earth perspective, the moon is moving in a circular orbit. If you look at it from the sun's perspective, the moon is moving in a spiral orbit. Right. So because of the difference in perspectives, the path is now changed. So Prabhu, these are some of the ways that we can reconcile. Not to say that we will be able to reconcile each and everything, but at least from an approach perspective. It's important that we approach this with full faith. So from an approach perspective, we can kind of frame it in these perspectives. In the introduction of Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada says that to appreciate the Bhagavad Gita, you have to theoretically accept that Krishna is God. Because if you don't accept Krishna as God, you will never be able to understand the Bhagavad Gita. So at least if you are able to accept from that perspective, that regardless of what I am being told, regardless of what I see, Prabhupada makes this point, and Prabhupada deliberately stirs things up. Like in one of the purports, he says that the stars are not luminous. They are like planets, but they're reflecting the light of the sun. Right? And that immediately, when I read it, I was like, no, really, there's this clear description of whichever is the closest planet to sun, that it is so many times larger than the sun, and its heat and light is measured now, whatever it is. But let us actually theoretically accept that whatever the Bhagavatam is speaking is the truth, that built into that acceptance will also be the gateway to our knowledge, that we will understand more of it. Maybe we'll never understand, maybe definitely we will not understand all of it, but to the extent that the Bhagavatam wants us to understand, to develop faith in Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. So I think we kind of run out of time. So what I would recommend is that I noticed Prem Kishore Prabhu has sent the link. So if you can in your time, watch that. It's an excellent presentation on the Bhumanda. And then we will continue, as we had discussed, in a session-based approach. At least I think what I want is to finish this chapter. And then after that, we'll go, the next set of chapters are not on the description of the universe. That comes a little later on. Next step is essentially the prayers. But it's, I think, the descent of Ganges and the prayers, etc. So then when we reach the main set of chapters in the 5th canto, then we will start doing our in-depth sessions on that. Okay, thank you. We'll end over here. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya vachah patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Anant Koti Vaishnavind ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nithai Gaur Premanand. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.